Okay, a couple of problems from 10.2 having to do with intercepts. This is number 16 on page 574. It's a word problem, but again, just comes down to x and y intercepts. So the story here is we're given a function that defines the remaining distance in miles that a plane must travel from Los Angeles to Paris, and that is this function here, where t is in hours and the output is the remaining distance in miles from LA to Paris. And we want to find the intercepts of that function and then explain what they mean. So before we were just doing x's and y's here, it doesn't matter what the letters are here. T is the independent variable, so we're going to put that on the horizontal axis, and S of t is the output. S is the output, t is the input. We'll put that on the vertical axis. So when we find the intercept for the horizontal axis, we'll call that the t-intercept in this case. So just like we did before, if we want a point on this axis, we're going to set the value of this to 0. Right? So we're going to set the output to 0. So all we're doing is setting the output to 0 and solving this resulting equation for time. So we do that. We end up with this. We subtract 6,000 from both sides of this equation to get to this. 0 minus 6,000 is negative 6,000. And we take 6,000 from this side to be left with negative 500t. Then one more step, we want to isolate the t, so we divide by negative 500. Negative 6,000 divided by negative 500 gives us a positive 12. So that tells us the point 12, 0 is on this graph. Right? The point 12, 0. We'll just put it over here and call it 12, 0. And what that means is, think about it, when time is 12 hours, after 12 hours, the remaining distance is 0. Well, that means you made it to Paris, right? And it takes 12 hours to fly from LA to Paris. That's the meaning of the t-intercept in this case. Right? If we look at the other axis, the s-axis here, we're just going to set the t-value to 0. Right? So we put t equals 0 into the original function. This becomes 0. S of 0 equals 6,000. So that tells us the point 0, 6,000 would be on this graph also. So let's just put that up here and say 0, 6,000. And we have a straight line graph between those 2 points. So what does this mean? This means at time 0, the remaining distance to Paris is 6,000 miles. So that tells you the distance from LA to Paris at takeoff at time 0 is 6,000 miles. Right? X and Y intercepts, in this case, T and S intercepts, and be able to kind of explain what they mean in the context of a given situation such as this. All right. So another one here, number 36. We look at number 36, it gives us the graph of the value of a building. Okay, so the value of the building in thousands of dollars is the vertical axis here, and the time in years is the x-axis here. And this graph is given with these 2 points. At time 0, the value of the building is $150,000. And after 30 years, the value of the building has fallen down to $0. So it asks us to find, so we're already given the intercepts here, right? We're given the intercept. The y-intercept is 0, 150,000, and the x-intercept is 30, 0. So we're asked to find the slope of the line connecting those 2 points, and again, explain what it means. So we know how to find a slope, right? We know the slope is the difference in the y values divided by the difference in the x values. So if we follow that procedure, we'll call, let's see, we'll call this point x1, y1, and this point x2, y2. Let's just do that. We'll call this x1, y1, and call this x2, y2, just to be clear about what we're, actually, it is the other way around, right? Sorry, the way I have it written. This one is x2, y2, and this one is x1, y1. Just to be consistent with what I wrote here, y2 minus y1, 0 minus 150,000 over 30 minus 0 leaves us with a slope of negative 150,000 over 30, which reduces down to negative 5,000. So what does that mean? That means, again, thinking about the meaning of slope, the slope tells you that for each change in x, this is the resulting change in y. So if we think about this as negative 5,000 over 1, right? When the change in x is 1 year, so for each increase of 1 year in x, the value of the building decreases by $5,000. That's the meaning of the slope, right? For this change in x, there's this accompanying change in y. And we can see that at that rate, after 30 years, the building is going to go from $150,000, 30 times 5,000, that 150,000 is going to go down to 0 after 30 years. All right, so x and y intercepts, slopes, interpreting what an x and a y intercept is, interpreting what a slope means. These are all the things you want to take from section 10.2.